Yeah, so just to set the stage, I won't go through the particulars of the trade, but Russell Wilson, of course, legendary quarterback. He will be in the Hall of Fame. He's led that franchise to 2 Super Bowls, won one, probably should have won the other. And Pete Carroll, of course, has been the architect on the sideline for the entirety as well. Former great USC head coach. So you're of the thought that Pete Carroll, despite his greatness both at USC and early in his tenure at Seattle, has not stayed up to date in regards to surrounding Russell Wilson with the type of personnel and offensive scheme to allow him to flourish in this day and age.
Absolutely, and I think there's a connection to USC, and we'll get to that. But there's a connection to USC here. But he had Brian Schottenheimer as his offensive coordinator with the Seahawks, and Brian Schottenheimer, from his days at Georgia, and also at Florida. Not like the ultra aggressive offensive coordinator that one would say Russell Wilson needed and moreover deserved with the Seahawks. And the thing that illustrates the point that Pete Carroll didn't keep up with the times as coach of the Seahawks is that in 2013 and 14, when he had the Legion of Boom at the height of its powers, I mean, he could win with a defense first, run first style. He also had Marshawn Lynch in his prime. So, of course, you can, play a more conservative style. And then you just ask Russell Wilson, to make, enough key plays to win the game. Of course, Russ was still very young, still learning the ropes in the NFL. So, like, it fit Russell Wilson then 7, 8 years ago, to have a more conservative, measured offensive style. But as Russ, entered his prime and felt fully comfortable as an NFL quarterback, the Seahawks became a team with the Legion of Boom getting older, getting hurt. The Seahawks became a team which needed to win games 42-35, which, to make one USC connection here, that's how Lincoln Riley's going to need to win games in 2022, right? He's going to need to win games 42-35 or in that ballpark. And so Pete Carroll insisted on the ground game, insisted on a defense first approach when it was clear that he needed to just, as the people in Seattle said, let Russ cook. And that just didn't happen enough. And so, there is something to be connected to Lincoln Riley in terms of USC being really well situated with Riley because he's in a position to win. He's going to be willing to win games 42-35. Not maybe on a long-term basis, but certainly this year. That's going to be the formula for USC to make the college football playoff. The other connection here, Mark, to USC, and it has a historical context here. If Pete Carroll was coaching USC today, like if he had been hired, let's just imagine a world in which he had been hired to come back for a second round. I don't think he would be set up to have the same success that he did in the early 2000s. And it gets to the point that college football, it was a really different game in the 1980s and 1970s because it was still a running back dominated sport back then. But even in the early 2000s, when we had seen Mike Leach, we'd seen Hal Mummy, we had seen Steve Spurrier leave their imprint on the sport. We have to remember that in the early 2000s, when Pete Carroll dominated at USC, this sport had still not evolved on a lot of levels in terms of the understanding of the passing game. Like the run pass option hadn't become stock and trade in the sport. Like when what Rich Rodriguez did at West Virginia felt like the space age when it happened, when he sprung Steve Slayton and Pat White on Georgia in that Sugar Bowl. That felt like a revolutionary earthquake moment in the development of modern offensive concepts in college football. So Pete Carroll, his ascendancy began a few years before that new movement really took off. So if you put Pete Carroll at USC today, Mark, it's my firm belief that he wouldn't have nearly the same success. And it takes a guy such as Lincoln Riley, who shows a lot more elasticity, a lot more flexibility, a lot more of the understanding of the need to lead with offense and the need to run an offense that is tailored to the skill set of a quarterback. That's something Pete Carroll did not keep up with in Seattle with Russell Wilson. So that's why giving up on Russell Wilson and trading him to the Broncos, that's the connection to USC on a number of levels.